Joining us today is George Roach, the CEO of Premier African Minerals. From site, George, I can see you're in your house on site there. So how are things?
Yes, all right. Thank you, Mark. Nice to be talking to you.
Well, thank you.
It's good to be on site.
Indeed, good to be on site. I mean, it's the week before Christmas, isn't it? So give us a state of the nation. What's going on site? How are things progressing now that you've actually got your feet on the ground? What are you seeing on the ground? What updates can you give to investors on how things are?
Sure. Well, at the moment, we are very well progressed with the civils associated with the thickener that is to be installed, and with the new mill and the components that go with the mill. They're pretty substantial civils. It's a big mill, and that requires a lot of reinforcing, a lot of engineering design, a lot of work, and then curing time. We're well advanced with those. We expect no delays from a civils perspective at all.
Okay.
The electrical connections and other connections associated with it, all of this is in hand. So it's a case of the OEMs must get their equipment to site. The moment it gets to site, we can start getting it installed. All of this will be happening in January. And the target is still to try and get all of this completed and done, switched on and working, and see us in production from February.
Great.
So at the moment, we're on track. We've paid everybody we need to pay, including the OEMs and whatever is necessary. So it's not a bad space at the moment.
Good. Okay. I presume production is not running at the moment. The plant is stopped. Is that right?
That's correct. The plant is stopped, but the mining is not.
Right.
I have at the moment 3 operating teams within the pit. It's 3 excavators, each supported by 3 30-ton dump trucks. There's continuous development work, exposure, ongoing within the pit. You could say this is capital expenditure. It actually is its development to allow us to be properly exposed in terms of the ore that we really want to process through the plant.
Okay. And how are things looking on the mining side then? You're getting through that weathered material there. What's the ore looking like?
Oh yeah, no, they're always competent. The ore that is exposed, and some of that has moved to the ROM pad. Not much has moved to the ROM pad yet, but it's all exposed and ready. This looks good. It looks competent. And the grades that we're seeing are pretty well in line with the block models that supported the mining plan in the first place.
Okay.
So we're reasonably comfortable there.
Okay, good. Well, of course, the recent news. Well, actually, when I saw you in London, we talked about it. The grade you got from your on-site lab through hand sorting from ore from the pit down there from the mine site. Of course, the big thing is you've got to get that through the plant, haven't you? And I think is it optimization of the UV sorters, not the XRT, that is currently ongoing?
Well, that's in the hands of the plant supplier.
Yeah.
And it relates both to the UV sorters and to the XRT. They got work to do with those, and they must get their work done. They must get it finished. I think that what's important to us at the moment is that we have clearly demonstrated that with run-of-mine ore as we have it, we can actually produce a decent spodumene without any sorters along the way. The sorters allow us to refine to a greater extent and so on and so forth once they're all working properly. But the facts of the matter are that we can produce spodumene anyway, and we're very comfortable with what we are going to produce.
Okay. I mean, so could you avoid the sorters in total then?
Yes, in theory, one could. They're here, they're standing here. I'd much rather that they were made to work properly and do the job they're supposed to do. And on that basis, it all enhances production, enhances grade. It does all of these things to help us improve. The point being that we've demonstrated absolutely adequately time after time that we can take run-of-mine material and we can produce decent spodumene concentrate.
Okay.
And I think that's great news. It underlies everything else, and gives us a lot of confidence going forward.
Indeed. And so where are your efforts focused at the moment then? You say the OEM is working on the sorters, so presumably you're overseeing that, making sure that is cracking the whip, so to speak. But any other small problems, any little things you're dealing with at the moment? What's taking your and the team's time?
Well, we're spending a lot of time at the moment with, as I've said to you before, we have a fully functional on-site laboratory.
Yeah.
And we're spending a lot of time in that laboratory looking at refinement on a whole lot of things. A very good example of this is that our ore body that we are mining principally at the moment is predominantly spodumene. There is effectively no petalite in this. Now, many of the ore bodies in and around Zimbabwe tend to be mixed in many ways. This is a spodumene-rich ore body. And what we have been doing, and we're doing a lot of ongoing work with this, is we are establishing a direct ratio between a reported lithium oxide grade of the material in situ and a relationship of that grade to the percentage of spodumene contained in the ore. And I think it's important to try and understand that the lithium is contained in a number of different minerals. Petalite is a common one. Lepidolite is a common one. We do have some lepidolite in the micas here. But when you're targeting spodumene, what matters is that for every ton of run-of-mine ore you put on your ROM pad, how much of that ore is made up of spodumene? And this work that we are doing is giving us a very, very clear guide and is confirming. I've previously said that 80 to 85% of the ore in this ore body is spodumene. And the regression models that we're developing based on the better part of 1,000 different test results from various different pegmatites here. I mean, all of this supports exactly this number that I've been saying is where we are at the moment. So the development of this tool is important to us and will allow us to track recoveries and so on much better through the plant. So there's a lot of work in that direction ongoing. There's a lot of work in understanding, in developing as good an understanding as we can of the contaminants that were there. We are re-examining concentrates that were previously produced that are at site to establish exactly where in these concentrates the contaminant resides, what the particle size is, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a huge amount of that sort of work that is ongoing at the moment. And all of this, I think, is going to put us in a much stronger position when we switch on this plant again and it runs.
And the milestones there that need to be achieved. So, of course, you've got the civils for the ball mill that's coming up, the thickener as well. These are two things that have got to be checked. I guess as well, the sorters have got, well, you say they don't probably have to be optimized, but they ought to be optimized really to run the ore through, and then sorting that ore and bringing the quality ore up from the ROM pad. I mean, those are some of the milestones, I guess, that you've got to achieve before you can turn it back on again. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. I mean, and we've created a secondary fallback position on removal of some of the contaminants. And we've reinforced our in-pit inspections. And when it comes to our ROM pad, we will effectively stage material across the ROM pad and do a further inspection on the ROM pad. We're doing, from Prem's perspective, everything that we can to mitigate that.
Mitigate, yeah. And that's a visual inspection, is it? Or is it using technology as well as part of that?
It's visual.
Visual, yeah. Okay.
It's visual, manual visual. I mean, it's very clear. The stuff is distinct. The color differentiation is completely distinct. You can't miss it on a basic color.
No, absolutely. Well, we saw when I was on site. It's very distinct. You can see it's pure white, isn't it? Really, basically, versus off-white. Anyway, I'd like to ask you a few questions that were sent about a couple of weeks ago. If we can just kind of run through them, there's about 8. So the first one, who are the 2 institutional investors taking up the £2.4 million subscription? Can you say?
Well, it's the subscription agreement's confidential. I can't go into that. I mean, if there's any shareholder above a certain threshold, then the obligation is on them to advise us and we publish. But I can't disclose details of a subscription agreement. I'm sorry.
No problem. I mean, and is there a lock-in period as part of the subscription agreement such that each investor is not allowed to sell their shares for a designated period of time? He's laughing.
You're asking me another question about something I can't discuss.
Again, you can't discuss that, sure.
The subscription agreements are confidential.
Confidential. Okay, no problem. Yeah. You mentioned that the new investors demonstrate the underlying value of Prem. Is this 0.23 pence per share or a company valuation of 63.7 million? Is that right?
Well, that's an interpretation of that. I have my own views, personally speaking. If I look at what we have spent and what we've achieved, I think that we have a very valuable situation at the moment, and I think one of very few that even in what are not the easiest of times at the moment is right there at production stage. So, it depends on which way you wish to interpret that, how you want to, what multiple you wish to use.
Sure. Can you talk about the cash position? I guess you can't, but how much cash or cash equivalents does Prem have at this point?
That is something that has to be RNS'd.
Yes.
But I'll repeat, I think what I said earlier, that at the moment, everybody needs to be paid what they need to be paid in relation to getting this thing back to production in January. As of this moment in time, those payments are made.
Okay, good. Now, outside of Stark and J.R. Goddard raises, what has the bulk of the remaining 12.8 million been and planned to be spent on?
Well, a very good example of this is mining development, and it's not the only one. If I just take mining development, the overall cost per bench cubic meter BCM for mining runs at around about $10 per BCM. Okay. I'll tell you that we are moving between 3,500 and 5,000 cubic meters of material a day at the moment. That's a significant amount of money. It's a significant pit development. I mean, you're talking about $50,000 a day just in pit development. I mean, all of that stands us in very good stead once material starts flowing through the plant, because it means your stripping ratios are lower, your cost of mining will be lower, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. But a lot of this is on development kind of this sort of work.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. That sounds like you're getting ready to have a significant tonnage to be going to, when you start in January. Well, that's good. That's nice to hear. I'd like to see a picture or two if we can, because obviously I'm not there. And when I was there, I saw the pit, and I imagine if you're spending that much money, it's a lot different to when I was there earlier in the year. It'd be nice to see some photos. A couple of other questions. Where are we here? Okay, there are now not enough shares left from the 5 billion authorised on August 12th to pay your loan back. How is Prem managing this?
Well, Prem's not at the moment. And to be perfectly frank with you, I haven't really put my mind to it. I've been more focused on trying to get this thing to a point where we produce again, and I'll worry about that then. Really, that's where I am. At some point, Prem will need to resolve it, but it doesn't have to be done right now.
Okay. The 11th of December RNS suggests that J.R. Goddard will be paid in shares again in Q1. With 97% of the 5 billion now issued, does that mean Prem will be asking shareholders to approve for the 5 billion new threshold to be increased?
If there is to be any general meeting or anything like that, notice will obviously have to be provided and given. We haven't at this stage issued any notice of any general meeting or anything like that. So, I mean, that's an issue I'd like to just postpone into the new year. I don't think it needs to be dealt with right now.
Okay. And is there any significance of Beaumont Cornish adding a disclaimer to the content of Prem's last two RNSs?
I don't know. I think you need to
Beaumont
ask,
Cornish.
yeah, ask Beaumont Cornish. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, for how long have we been doing RNSs? I'm really not quite certain.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
didn't even particularly notice it, to be absolutely frank with you.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, well, this has been picked up, so I guess it's. I would say it's probably not a huge thing to concern about, but yeah, they can maybe ask Beaumont Cornish on that. The only other one I have, George, before we finish off, is regards the money owed to Canmax, which is what some people are concerned with because, of course, there's sort of been 2, perhaps 3 months of missed pay delivery dates there. So perhaps £4.5 million is due to Canmax or owed to Canmax, or they could indeed take shares at 0.32. So the question really is, how do you plan to pay if you don't have the funds available? Would you do a share issue? And again, you probably have to raise a share headroom. So what can you comment on what's owed to Canmax and how that might be addressed?
Well, let me start off by saying that we don't owe Canmax money.
Okay.
What we have with Canmax, the arrangement with Canmax, is that they have entered into a pre-purchase agreement with us for spodumene. That's where we are, and if one cares to look very carefully at the amendments and so on that have occurred along the way, in regard to November, should we not pay, Canmax had a number of options available to them. And one of those options was to ask for a payment of an amount of money. An alternative was, if they asked for the payment of the amount of money and we didn't make the payment, that they could then elect to accept shares. If they did not elect to accept shares, then this would roll up, if we continued not to deliver spodumene, would roll up to a point in about 18 months' time when the lack of delivery of spodumene would convert into an equity in Zulu Lithium Direct, based on a predetermined valuation of Zulu Lithium of $200 million US dollars. So at this moment in time, nobody has come to me and asked me to make a payment. Our relationship is a relatively open one with our offtake partner. We are open and frank with them in terms of where we are. They have options, and it's for them to elect if they want to elect to use an option or not. I think it's perfectly clear at the moment that as we sit here today, they haven't elected to use one of the options. And I then come back to your original question. The question presumes that we owe Canmax money at the moment. So I come back and I say again, we don't owe Canmax money at the moment.
Sure. Okay.
Circumstances may arise where we may, but right now we do not. So the rest of that question is it's of no significance at the moment.
I hope, yes. Well, that was very clear. I hope that puts that to bed, that situation there with Canmax and delivery deadlines. The only thing I'd like to finish off with, George, coming to the end of the year now. So, where do you think the future lies for Prem? Where's the price going? It's difficult. I can't ask a CEO to make a price prediction, but of course the price has come back a fair way, due to, I guess, disappointment and missed deadlines. You say you're confident to get those deadlines met by, the deadline, which is February, I think you said earlier. If you were to finish off with a bit of a message to shareholders as you go into the new year, what would you perhaps want to say to them?
Well, in terms of a message to shareholders, I'm deeply appreciative of the support that we've had. I think that we have a reasonably good line of communication. I'm happy to engage with any shareholders at any time. If I'm asked things I can't answer, I'll say so, as you've seen now. So I'm appreciative of that. I'm appreciative of the ongoing support. I'm I'm not comfortable in terms of where our market capitalization is at the moment. I have my own personal views, and I think some of them are fairly clear from this discussion already. In terms of pricing, I was going through some numbers with somebody just the other day, and I think basically what they were saying, if I can remember my numbers correctly, was an EV car requires, I can't remember the tonnage, 7 to 10 tons of SC6, just one.
Right.
Just one Tesla or whatever it is. There are a hell of a lot of EV cars around, and I don't know that there's all that much spodumene. I know there's a lot being produced, and some people are ramping up. I don't know whether we haven't got a bit of a situation where we might have a little bit of an overreaction on the downside. I don't think that the prices we were seeing last year were ever going to be sustainable. And I don't think they were real going forward into a 1, 3, 5, 10-year cycle. But where we are at the moment, is this where they're going to settle? I don't believe so. My personal views is that I think that this is a period of time. The other thing that's worth looking at, and there's plenty of published numbers. I know we haven't made any forecasts in terms of our overall production cost and so on and so forth at this time. But if you look at published numbers, you can see, if you look at some of the Australians, some of the newer DFSs that may have come out, that all the spodumene production costs are probably ranging anywhere between $500 and $900 a ton to produce. So there's nobody at this stage of those who are in production or at production who I think are necessarily facing an impending disastrous situation. And my view is that the future lies significantly in the technologies that spodumene and some other lithium sources, but spodumene to a big extent support. So I'm reasonably comfortable at the moment that with production targeted where we have it, that's Prem's going to be fine. So those are sort of my personal views, very much personal views at this stage.
Okay, well, I would agree. I mean, you said that Canmax wants spodumene, they need it. I was talking to Charles Archer the other day, and he was talking about Canmax and the other suppliers who will be going offline in sort of circa 2025, and they have commitments to their clients as well. So that would explain why they're very supportive of Prem and wanting to see the desired outcome for both companies. Okay. Well, I wish you a happy Christmas, George. Will you be staying on site over the Christmas period, working away?
No, I won't, unfortunately. I need to travel up to Harare, and I've got a few other things I need to get done. But I won't be far away.
Won't be far away. Okay,
very, very close.
Well, we'll catch up again in the new year and see how things are going. But for now, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.